Yo, Food Service Power Plant Network, what is up, friends? It is Wednesday night. Nothing going on in the world except for this right here. So you know, just so that everyone is aware, we did take a poll 2 weeks ago, and we said, should we have a conversation tonight? Considering all that's going on, yes or no? And people voted yes. There is no electoral college at the Food Service Power Plant Network. It is strictly popular vote. And so everyone welcome to Great Distraction. We are going to try to avoid all that stuff tonight. Hopefully it's a good break for you to get away. I'm about to bring on Karin Sugarman, CEO and president of Pride. And we're going to have a fun conversation, talk life, talk buying groups, talk the industry, talk development. And hopefully you will have a blast. I think you will. Remember, if you are commenting in the stream right here, you go to StreamYard/Facebook, we can see your comments and even bring them up on screen. If not, I'm going to try to watch on my phone as well so I can see who you are, because I might not be able to see in the moment who is commenting. But remember, we love your questions. We love your thoughts. We want to hear any questions you have for Karin, and we're going to have a blast. So let me bring her on. Fingers crossed, no whammies. Karin! All right.
Hi.
Hi, we did it.
I had full faith that it would work.
Well, good. I had like 90% faith. But we're here. Listen, I'm so grateful to have you on. You've been in the industry. I'm going to let you tell your story in a minute. I'd love to hear your background and your story, but you've been in the industry a long time, and you have so many relationships. There's a lot of impact you're seeing right now, and lots of insight and wisdom. You've had to overcome a lot of things in your story, which I'm sure gives you perspective for now and know how to handle this. So listen, thanks for taking time away from your family and joining us tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored.
You got it. Well, we're going to hopefully encourage our members. We're going to bring a little bit of light, give some hope. And everyone, thanks again for joining. We got 12 people on right now. Remember, if you've got questions for Karin, throw them in the group. We will ask her. She might even be able to see them. Actually, she probably will be able to see them. So we'll have fun. Karin, tell us, just so that everyone who's watching knows, give us a bit of your background. Tell us your food service story.
I started in food service in the back office. So my background is accounting, and I was in public accounting in Washington, D.C., and my husband and I moved to New Orleans. And things move a little differently, a little slower in New Orleans, and we were building a house, and I was in a 2-room executive apartment while this house was being built. And so I just started looking through the paper, and I found Pride, and they needed a controller, and I went and interviewed, and it was, you know, as people who know Robert Autenrieth before, fast and furious, right? And took the job, and I'm like, well, if I don't like it and I find something else, I'll just, you know, help him out right now, and then I'll leave. And then 20 years later, you know, I was still doing that. But so I started as controller of Pride, and there were 6 employees and maybe 50 members at the time. In 92, yeah. So it had been around about 1.5 years. And so I wasn't in from day one, but close. And through my tenure there, really got out of accounting, right, and started doing other things, and spin-off companies and creating things. Even did marketing for a while, which was funny because, you know, I was an accountant, right? And so, but managing that, and then morphed into working with the senior team on vendor contracts and programs and things like that. So I kind of came up through the dealer side, watching the dealers and what their challenges were, and worked just from the buying group side, but was able to, in 2012, moved over to the manufacturing side, which was quite an eye-opener. Yeah, so I was with Isomatic for 3 years as the CFO, and academically I knew about manufacturing and what needed to happen, and I thought I knew all the pain points from the manufacturer, but living it is quite a different story, right? And so it did help my perspective of what is going into those conversations when we're doing programs. So it was interesting. And I loved it. I learned so much from that. And then obviously in 2016, Pride had a challenge, and the board called me, and I went back and stepped in to do some cleanup work, and I'm still here. So.
Wow, so you started in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's almost 30 years. Is that 28 years?
Yeah.
So to be, you were at Isomatic for a little bit, you took a little detour, but a majority of your career has been with this organization.
Absolutely.
To spend that much time somewhere, there's got to be something special about where you are, where you work. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's special and unique about Pride.
Pride, and I think this is probably true if you talk to any of the buying groups, it's like a big extended family. And, you could get mad at them, but nobody else can. That kind of, it's that kind of relationship, right? And just really watching those independent companies grow, and now people that weren't even, they have children now that weren't even in the business when I started in 92. They were probably and I'm dating myself, in high school, and now they're running the companies, is really fulfilling. And so really helping them. And I love the underdogs, right? So I love independent businesses and make sure they can succeed. And so it just sort of fit. And it's just a good vibe.
Oh, good. How for you right now, just out there in the market as you see it, you've seen dealers go through a lot of turbulent times.
Yeah.
And you've got your dealers. I'm sure you're connected to a lot of people. How are folks doing on an emotional, mental, psychological level with everything going on?
It's interesting because everyone's is unique in how they handle things. And I think on the dealer side, they tend to be a little stoic, right? There's that group. And then there's the group that's very collaborative and communicative, and they're just sharing everything. And so I don't worry about those people because they're finding their way. I worry about the people who are very closed and keeping it close to the vest. And but they take that stoic approach, and they seem to be doing fine. In that focusing on the reality of it, and then what can you make of it. And I anticipate we'll see some change out of it. We've got an aging population overall in our industry, and so we may just see some people say, you know what, yeah, I got this through, but now I don't want to do it anymore.
Sure.
Which wouldn't surprise me, but at least it's a choice. It's, my advice is make it a proactive choice and do it the right way. And some are just, they get it. They've been through 08, 09. They've been through other things, and they're just looking at, what do I need to do to get to January to June, and are positioned, from what I can see, fairly well to weather it. It's just uncomfortable. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfamiliar oftentimes is that. It's and hopefully, like you said, as long as you're seeing to some degree what's coming and you can find the opportunity in it, mm-hmm. Hopefully there's a lot of opportunity, even for those folks thinking about getting out. There's opportunity there one way or another to collaborate with someone or partner with someone, or have that another younger generation come up and start taking that energy and build something new from where we stand today.
Absolutely. It was interesting because it did happen fairly quickly, right? Without a whole lot of warning, where all of a sudden it was boom, everybody's at home. And I saw people doing things very well, right? So analyzing the business, what do we need to do? Where do we need to contract? Most of our dealers, their staff stayed, right? And so then what do you do? Right? What do you have them do? You're paying them. So taking the opportunities to rearrange the showroom or clean up the warehouse. And it's not the fun stuff, but it's the stuff you never do. It always gets put on the back burner. Looking at other opportunities for different markets. So connecting with their local community, and all of a sudden they realize, hey, we can help each other. Yeah. So, or PPE or guards or whatever that might be. And then of course I think everybody and the vendors jumped on this as well. It was like, well, let's train everybody right now because they don't have anything else to do. So they filled their time. And I think most people will say every day was slow, but now I can't believe it went by so fast. Right? So how do we get to November and can you really remember what every day was like back in March?
Right.
Yeah.
It is fascinating how it's evolved and how we've learned. I talked to someone today, they don't like the term new normal, but it seems like most people, well, a lot of people I talk to have found a new groove. They're not still totally tripping over themselves. It's a different groove, but it's new and they found it. Pete is watching, Ari's watching, Ben, Rebecca, Andrea. Hi, everybody. Deborah, great to see you on. Remember, if you've got questions for Karin as we go along, throw them in the group. We'll see if she can answer, and we'd love to have you pick her brain. Karin, what have you guys done to keep your team, both at Pride here in Denver? Why don't we start there? What have you done to keep your team going, to keep energy hopeful and up and creativity flowing, all that kind of stuff?
It's interesting because you take for granted how much people overhear and how much you share by just being in the space. Yeah. Right. And so you really have to think about the communication. And so I know, each individual team are doing multiple Zoom, and we're doing Zoom. And even though Zoom fatigue is a real thing, it's so much better than just a phone call when we can't see each other. And we do a daily senior leadership check-in. And it may be nothing, but at least, we can chat. And then we have a weekly all hands meeting. Again, we may not have anything important to talk about, but it's just to do the check-in. And, it's interesting because we have a fair number of introverts, so they don't need a whole lot, but then we have a few where all of a sudden I realized they live alone, right? Or they're single, they're empty nesters, whatever. And so, are you okay? And people don't like that when you ask them, but it was necessary to say, if you need something, let me know. And we did a couple just lunches at one point, just like, well, I have to be at the office. And our accounting team's probably going in once or twice a week. Okay. Not everybody, but sporadic. So they are seeing some people. Good. And so that's, really doing that for that team and just trying to keep that communication open. And we Slack a lot. And, before I hated it, and now it's great. It's convenient. And then it's like, okay, this stream has gotten way too long. I can't keep up. So shouldn't you just call me? So, yeah. We do all the same thing. The weekly Zoom calls or go-to meetings. We do Slack too with different threads. We just created in our company just a positivity thread. Positive daily wins, I think Josh called it, so that people can just check in or give something hopeful or some win, personal, professional, whatever that is. And to your point about a fair amount of people living alone, that was a part of the idea of the food service power plant community, honestly, was there were people alone who didn't feel comfortable at the time, even going outside, because people were nervous. They had no one they were connecting with. So it was a place simply to come together and feel like you're not doing it alone, hopefully, with peers that have these common connections. So I'm so glad you guys did that. Yeah, well, absolutely. And so from the dealer perspective, we had already been doing monthly webinars, just like the principal owners, it could be 20 minutes, max 30. Just to do this is the key information that we need to make sure you know. But beginning in April, we started calling every single dealer, and we did it every, say, 6 weeks or so for a while, just to let them know, right? And to see and to take a temperature. And it was a lot of work trying to track people down, but it did work. And just to say what's going on, and then trying to connect certain dealers if we knew, like, hey, so-and-so needed something and that person just mentioned it. So it was it was a very old-fashioned way of trying to do that networking for people, but it was a good way to stay in touch.
Oh, I'll bet. I have to assume all your dealers appreciated being brought together, hearing what's going on regionally in different areas, brainstorming, getting ideas collectively with their peers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think safety in numbers, right? So to hear that you're not alone, and hey, what I'm going through is I'm not the only one, right? Yeah. And there were common threads geographically, but then you might hear something that, one area was totally different than another. Many of our guys really jumped on trying to provide the PPE, so we found sources, but then some of the dealers found their own, and we're sharing that. Cool. So, hooking people up and how could they get it, and sharing containers and that kind of thing. So that networking was more important than ever during this period of time.
Heck yeah. Taz is saying, we're going to try something. I'm going to push this button. Let's see what happens, Karin. We're going to play with this. Whoa! Taz is our buddy with Walmart. Taz says, are you okay? It's important. Do you feel like that question was that there was any stigma around asking it previously, that there are some stigmas about what you could ask someone previously that aren't there any longer?
Yeah, that question, are you okay? Because for some people, if they're unsure, it would be like, are you saying that I'm not? Or do I seem like I'm not? And I think it's natural now to say, how's everything going? How's the family? Are you okay? And we have several people who have school-age children. So they're remote learning and they're trying to do Zoom, and you can just tell sometimes it's like, okay, let's take this to a different place because you are obviously just almost to your limit. Yeah. And it is important to ask that. And so, yeah, and I think before, if you saw them every day, you could see those differences a little bit more. And when you don't, Taz has a good point. It's a good place to just say, really, are you okay? What's wrong?
I think one of the things in the past was there was for me, I saw a boundary, and I probably, just because I like knowing about people, like probably crossed it sometimes, but in your personal life is over here and your professional life is here. And when we come into the office or we're doing work, stay over here. And if someone, let the personal be the personal. And now, I mean, if ever those worlds have been blended, it's now where they're so interweaved. I mean, I'm doing this from my home office. I assume you are, yep. And virtually every day. So I wonder, have you seen that as a silver lining or any other silver linings of this time?
Oh, I definitely have. And I think, you'll find what you look for. So that's one of my beliefs. So, if you start looking for them in business, we had already started doing some flexible work schedules and considering remote. And I have to say I'm old school, so I was kind of, I don't know. And then but March 12th or 13th, I'm like, we're going remote. And so it was not a question. And so it really has shown me that it is good. And so to take that pressure, especially off the people who have family who need them, has been tremendous, right? And so and I have to say that as an introvert, I realized at one point, I'm like, I could do this for a long time, and I'm not having a problem. So it was funny. And then when I think about going into the office, then I have to rethink how I'm going to start my morning to be able to get out the door. And I'm like, okay, I've gotten used to this way too easily. But so I think that openness to say, we need to be more flexible with how people do their jobs is a big plus. Sure. And in just say like the neighborhood, I have spoken to more of my neighbors, even though we're not, we're social distancing, but this summer, the kids were out and they were actually off the computers, off the phones. playing ball, riding bikes, and you could see them. And there were kids I didn't even know they were in this neighborhood. And so I think that disconnection, or disconnecting from technology sometimes, and getting out and taking that time and relaxing or finding new things to do, I think is a huge silver lining.
Yeah, oh, so agree. The amount of certainly our routines have changed here as well. I was almost always out the door before 7, and now our kids are going to school, and my wife's teaching there, and so now I'm the one sort of getting everybody helping, and lunches and coffee. Here you go, babe, and all this kind of stuff. I feel like I'm juggling in the morning, and frankly, it's been great. And my daughter joked. My wife told me one time, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months into COVID, we're around each other all the time, and thankfully we get along. We're a close family. But she says to my wife, Mom, I think Dad's starting to figure out this whole parenting thing.
He's gotten a lot smarter.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know what that says about the previous 11 years, but we're going to take it as a win, and we'll rejoice in what we have now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Who is this? Let's see what they're saying. Deborah is saying dealer support is so more important now than ever. How awesome. Heck yeah. So glad there's a community and, a group like yours to support, all your dealer network all around the country. Who's saying this one? Kara, you find what you look for. Well said. Heck yes. I couldn't agree with that more. I heard a phrase the other day. Someone said that in 12-step programs, I was listening to some guy, motivational speaker who had done a 12-step program. He said the phrase was that on that which you dwell, it swells. So like that which you focus on only grows and expands.
Right.
And I'm such a believer in figuring out and intentionally, and especially right now with everything going on and lots of emotions and everything in the world around us, I find myself having to be way more intentional about that which I'm going to put my mind toward.
Absolutely. And I believe that too. And I catch myself sometimes that I'm like, okay, you need to take a reset because you're getting into that trap of everything's crappy. And it's like, no, everything's not. You're just having one of those days, right? And so it absolutely is true. And I think we've seen that in the media, right? What you dwell on is kind of where that goes. And maybe if we could just infect everybody with that, we would be a lot better off. So.
Well, we're doing a little part tonight, so I'm glad we're doing it. Okay, Karin, your bio says on the Pride website that you're the most likely to believe in Santa. Now, we don't want to do any spoiler alerts for anyone out there.
Okay.
You keep believing if you believe. But what is it about that? Is it the spirit of possibility? Is it that gifts is one of your love languages? I was trying to think ahead of time. I wonder what it is about that Karin puts that in her bio.
Well, so somebody did that for me, and that was their observation of me. And so then I'm like, well, yeah, probably. But Christmas has always been a big deal in our family. And so we actually have this saying in the house, if you don't believe, you don't receive. And because it's about how fun it is. It's about the fantasy of it, the creativity and just the joy, right? So Santa, think about Santa. He can do anything. Right? If he can get up and down that chimney, what else can he not do? And for me, even growing up, it's a big deal for kids in our family. So they pretty much get what they are wishing for. And hopefully we've had cases where they're such believers, we don't always know what they've asked Santa for, which is a little tricky. But so it's for me, it's the joy, and it is the possibility. It's just like, well, yeah, anything could happen. And so why not?
Yeah. Have you been able to, for the most part, during the last 8 months, where do you find yourself? Are you someone who sort of inherently says, you know what, there's so much good that can come from this? Do you go up and down or back and forth between, gosh, what mess is being created now versus, you know what, everybody, you just have to look for the opportunity and believe in the good possibilities?
I don't know that I've totally thought about it that way. It's more of, this is one of those things, and it's yes, it's one of the weirder things. You just have to keep going. And I think for me, it's just been, you just shift lane, you just have to shift and you keep going. So I haven't really thought about the bad side. It's like, yes, this is something that's going to be here for a while. This may change how we operate forever. Okay. Do we have to wear masks forever? Maybe. I mean, people have been doing that in Asia for years, and it's just different for us. So I think, one thing, look, fewer colds, fewer flu this year, right? Because people are not out. They're also washing their hands. Sure. I think for our industry and the operator side, it's more work, but you know what? It may have better long-term benefits, more sanitation, and having more products to help them do that easily. So, I just kind of more go with the flow, and so I think it's more about just adapting and then making the best of it.
I love your approach that there's not a lot of woe is me involved in that. If you look at it as a multi-lane highway, you know what? We've been in the left lane for a period of time, and guess what? There's a log in the left lane right now, or a truck dumped whatever was in the back of it. So we're going to go to the center lane and the right lane, and we're just going to find a way to make it work because that's the only option, and we might as well make the best of it.
Right. If you stay, you can't crawl under a rock. So I guess you can, but you shouldn't. And some of these things, it's like, is it really that bad? And here in Colorado, it's been fairly open through the summer, right? And so, so you have to wear a mask. Okay. If that's, that's the choice you want to make. So it's interesting. It's like, well, there are a whole lot of worse problems out there that people are having to deal with. So.
Thank you for that. Jeff says manifesting success. Let me ask you a question on that. You're the CEO and president of Pride. Was that your goal? Did you ever say, you know what? I want to run this organization or an organization like it?
There may have been a point in time where I thought that might happen, and then it totally did a 180, and I thought no. I thought that I would be at some level of running a company.
Okay.
Don't know that I thought I would be, the CEO, but it was interesting. I mean, other people probably saw that, and it felt right. And so to know that company that well and know how to get it going was one of those fits, right? And if not, I'd probably, could see myself more in the number 2 role because of that being more, operational and introverted, right? Because most people don't think of that and as a CEO, and it's difficult sometimes. That being on, talking a lot. I don't do that a lot, so when I do, it takes a lot of energy.
Sure. Yeah. Do you, when you came on, when the board called and said, Karin, we'd like you to come back and run this thing. There's some stuff going on. Yeah. Tell me what. Have you always been a confident person, by the way? Like you exude a good level of confidence just in the times I've connected with you. Has that been true for most of your story?
I would say that I've been brave. I don't know that I always behind the scenes am confident. So, but you make a decision and you go. So I would say yes, but I will tell you, there's a lot of questioning going on in my mind. So, I mean, I run through things and then what ifs and I think that helps though. So have life experience. The older I get, maybe the more confident I get because what else could happen kind of thing. But it was interesting, right? I wasn't necessarily confident. I knew that if we could get through the mess that was 2016, that it had a really good shot of making it. and the dealers, knowing how it's structured and the volume that they could do and the business they could do, that yeah, we could do it. I just didn't know completely when I jumped in how deep the pool was, right, that I was jumping into. And so that was, it was somewhat, this is kind of weird and a little sick, but it was like, it's kind of exciting. And at the same time, it was, do I even want to go there? And I wavered. I said no. And then I'm like, this could be a great opportunity, but also it could be a great opportunity to help these people because they're really in a bad spot. And many of them that were in the really bad spot really didn't do a whole lot to put themselves there. So, it was chaotic times.
Well, you did it. You learned a lot. You did it. You took risks. You jumped in. You were brave. Your wording, I love it. Someone once said, I think it was Jack Canfield, I heard say, confidence is simply built by surviving a risk.
Yeah.
And what was something in that time you went in, you were looking at something unfamiliar. You'd never done that before.
Right.
And you've got your team, you built your team, and you did it. What did you learn about you?
I learned that this is funny. I told somebody, I said, I have a high pain threshold. And that can be a good thing, right? And, just being able to help focus people and calm them down. And so it's really about, again, it's done. You can't go back. You can only go forward. And what do you want to do? And just being able to get them to take a breath was huge. And that's what they needed, because you can't make good decisions when you're distraught or full of anxiety. And, that's what it all kind of came together to be able to do that for them.
What a gift to be able to offer that in times of challenge, to help those around you just settle, get calm, take a breath, and recenter.
Yeah. I came in and I said, is the group that's there, are they ready to make some tough decisions? And the answer was probably not, but we got to do it anyway. And so, there were some decisions that were painful that we had to make. We closed an office, so, we lost some employees in New Orleans and that kind of thing, but it was the right thing to do for the business, and it had to be done. So it was, it was difficult, and it was easier, say, for me to come in and do it than somebody who had been living through the whole trauma of when it happened. So.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are grateful for you stepping into that role and continue to live out the fruits of that decision. And you made a cool point, which was there were, I don't know exactly what you said, a lot of people that needed, that were in a tough situation that didn't necessarily deserve to be there, and you were helping people. It was almost like a moment of service for you. Has that, I don't know, maybe talk for a second about the role that service plays in your leadership, just being there for others.
Yeah. Leadership to me really is service, right? Because you're doing that for someone else or another group. So, you hear a lot that buzz term servant leader, but it is true, because you have to find that reason why you're doing it. And it's interesting. I don't own any of Pride. It's dealer owned, and I'm an employee. But it's knowing that I can help. We can help get them here. If we didn't do X or Y, or if this team member, didn't develop this program, they would be behind, or whatever it might be, is really important, because why get up every day if you're not doing that? It's not. You could do anything for money, but it's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right. You can earn a salary, but you have to be able to want to get up every day and go take that on. So I think it's huge in leadership. You can't really be a leader without it.
I think that point, it comes up a lot in the group, is knowing your why, knowing what lights you up, that fire that when you wake up in the morning, you're ready to build or you're ready to grow or contribute or create or whatever those things are. That, and you're right. I think universally money is not the answer there. That's not the thing that gets you going. It's a bigger sense of contribution or creativity in a way. So I think that's powerful that you found it. And I'm sure everyone benefits because you recognize that bigger picture. And I have to think, Karin, that I don't know the degree, if any of your dealers are watching, that they knew that. Maybe they did know that about you, but hopefully when a leader knows their why, it encourages everyone else around them to start asking, you know what, what's the reason that I get up in the morning? What am I hoping to create in the world, or et cetera? So it's sort of a reverberating gift, I think, that you keep giving to everyone that you get to lead.
Yeah, and it is a community, right? So we have our team, we have a great leadership team. Then you've got the dealers, you've got the board, and the real important part to remember is when you're down, hopefully the other people are there to push it forward or go forward and go up, because you can't be on all the time, and so that's why you're not doing it by yourself. And that's important. And so there have been times where it's just been, a dealer called for something, and it's like, well, that's really cool. You just made my day, right? Sure. Or hopefully we've done that the other way too. And you spend a big chunk of your time, of your life, in the day working with that, and so it has to be something that at least makes you happy a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're not happy doing it, then it's time to start searching for something else. What brings your joy? Everyone, Food Service Power Plant, you've got Karin Sugarman here. If you have a question, throw it in the group, and we'll be able to look at it and answer. If you've been watching her or following her, you know her, and you've got a question now that we're diving into some different stuff that maybe you haven't asked her before, now might be a cool moment. Karin, so I'm a believer that success leaves clues. Pete Angenin. Pete, what's up, buddy? Says you can do anything for money, but it's not fulfilling. Making a difference should matter. Oh, you know what? I remember we can push on the button. Boom. You can do anything for money, but it's not fulfilling. Making a difference should matter. Pete was on our group from Ed Don a few weeks ago and talked about that very point, one of the silver linings, learning to make a difference, the thing that we talked about, legacy, which you and I will talk about a little bit later too. And so Pete, well said. There's something bigger than that money piece, something deeper that everyone who's come on for one of these weekly conversations has echoed. It has been a common theme, that deeper purpose of fulfillment and, knowing why you do what you do. Yeah.
And people do it differently, right? So some people have big, huge goals that they go, and it's big chunks of stuff. And I like little ones, right? So getting there and if it's extremely stressful, I get, and this is sick, but it's the accountant part of me. It's like, okay, if I finish this spreadsheet, then I can go do something bigger because I finished it and it's good. And so, everybody's got to have that little trick that can get them going. And so sometimes it's like, no, let me do that because I know I can do that. I can do that spreadsheet and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, sure.
And they're like, oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, oh, I want to do that.
Well, it kickstarts something in you. It's an igniter of sorts. Your motivation wheel gets going when you accomplish something. It's almost like one of the things we talk about in the group is, if you're struggling to feel confident in moving forward right now, think back about on past times where you succeeded, where you accomplished something, where you felt proud. Even going back to those moments can help that confidence level rise a little bit to then give you that momentum to start going now. So it almost seems like something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, are there routines that you have in your day, or like little disciplines that you typically stick to? Are you someone that before you leave the house every day, the bed is made and the pillow's in the same spot? Or do you have anything like that in your world?
Yeah, well, that you just coined it. The bed is made every day. Okay. So, and it's funny. I don't want to get in a bed that's not made. So, everything's kind of in their place. And we're empty nesters now, so a little different. But when my son was in junior high and high school, I mean, I ate breakfast every day. I was not traveling. We had breakfast together.
Okay.
And so that was our time, right? And so I think finding things like that. So for me, it's the order. So in the morning, the dishwasher is unloaded, the bed is made, and I'm probably not very good about making sure the teacup is back downstairs, but that's where I mess up. But so I do that. But that's so my morning. I'm not a morning person, so I do have to stick to the routine. And if I don't, and I get out of order, then it's a bit of a challenge. But
did your routine change when COVID hit a little bit? Morning routine?
No, and I didn't necessarily do it consciously, but I guess subconsciously knew like you need to stay on a routine. And we kind of polled and like on the leadership team, like Kara Schlarb and Hattie Ellickson and Jason, and it was like all of us were still doing that. It's like we get up, you shower, you get dressed, you go into the office, wherever you were working. And it makes a huge difference because I never could work from home before. And I was worried about it. And then because of necessity, it just kicked in, which was, I was thankful because I was a little concerned that I would be doing my past, which would be, let me just put that load of laundry in, or, I'm just going to take this to the mailbox. And so I have been pretty good. But before, it was a bust. So it was just, I just told people I was working at home. But
well, I'm glad it's working out. Warren Manzer, I'm enjoying hearing from you both this evening. Thanks, Warren. Great to see you, my friend. Kevin from KC, I think this is Kevin, right? I'm looking on my phone. Kevin from KCL, solve a problem for another person and you both are now happier. Yeah, when you get to collaborate on helping someone, brainstorming, solving a challenge, whatever that is, you both get the gratification and the satisfaction and that confidence of getting to serve one another and create together, et cetera. So well said, Kevin. Okay, here's a question. We talked earlier about professional and personal lives being very blurred right now. And do you see owners and managers, either of the dealers or just generally in the vendors that you work with, your suppliers, paying more attention to make sure that employees, that personal, the mental health side, that those needs are being met right now as well? Do you see a movement happening that way?
I hadn't really thought about that. I don't know of any specific examples, but I mean, for us, it's just been more about reminding. I actually did this a couple times during this period in our staff meetings, is just reminding everybody of the benefits we have. And so we don't have a separate EAP, employee assistance program, but we do have one as part of our healthcare. Okay. And it's one of those things that normally you probably forget about and you never think about. So making sure they remember that. I think what I see, and maybe this is not far enough, but just trying to be as flexible as possible. Yeah. Right. So especially with people with children and they're having to, take them to places or even to school now, right? Like you're going to school. In that, hey, in the middle of the day, I probably have to go, but I'll be back. Okay. I mean, it's just, that's part of the deal now. And it's not a problem. Or it hasn't been for us. It's like, everybody knows what they need to get done and then they do it when they need to. So, but other than that, I don't know. I'd like to hear if anybody has put something into place that's working for them. But it's more, I think, just the check-in and flexibility.
Well, I think that's huge. I mean, I have to think when it comes to work, a lot of the anxieties and fears that people can have come around whatever the expectations were in the past. These are my hours. I've got to meet them, and I can't get distracted, and there can't be a dog barking, and there can't be kids coming in the office. I mean, the amount of times the dog barks now or the kids come in and have a question, it's just a part of the game now. And I think that flexibility and that understanding, I think really does take a level of pressure off people to know that it's about getting the job done. It's not about, everyone else around me not thinking I'm a human being as well.
Right. I mean, I personally, I always enjoy if the kids pop into the picture or the dog or whatever. I mean, so it's a distraction. It's funny and it's cool to see them. But it made me realize, hey, I've got a pretty easy gig. I mean, again, empty nester, separate office, no pets. So I really stepped back to say, I've really got it easy. I need to be understanding because I'm not having to deal with all this other stress or load.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think it's great. I always love when the kids come in. So get to see them and talk to them, and then you can see the employee like kind of shrinking a little bit. I'm like, it's fine.
It's okay, right? We get it. Sandy says flexibility. Sandy Van Buren, flexibility and compassion are key during this time. I would agree, and I can't imagine. I mean, we're food service people. We are a people that have built our lives around service in some capacity, and in hospitality, you're here for others and lifting others up. So right now, I've got to imagine almost everyone I've talked with and worked with, this has been just a no-brainer. Everyone's flexible, everyone's compassionate, given the times, and yeah.
So and it goes further. Like, are we treating servers better when we go out because we realize it's more difficult? I hope so. Yep. Right. Are we tipping better maybe because of it? I hope so. And it's not going to make up for everything, but it helps. And so,
yeah, as much grace as can be offered to everyone within my sphere of influence. Absolutely, because everyone's hurting, and every little bit that you can, give an extra tip, whatever that is, it matters. It touches someone in a way. It's not just about a pocketbook. You're a book reader.
Yes.
Is there? I'm going to change the question. Well, I'm going to change the question. Do you have a book that, like, some people have a book that, like, it's just when someone says, "What's the book that's had the most impact on you?" Do you have something like that just affected you so profoundly?
I probably have a few, but one is Necessary Endings, and it's about really taking a look at when things may be not working. So how long do you keep pushing forward instead of really the decision might be, hey, this is not working, so you need to stop and you need to go somewhere else. That's been a good one, and that was recommended to me by one of our dealers. And other than that, probably not. I mean, I read a lot of different stuff, so it's kind of fun. But.
Or do you prefer, or do you mix fiction and nonfiction? Are you all over the place?
I do, and and business books. I don't know how everybody else feels, but many of them desperately need an editor, right? So, taking 3 chapters to tell me what you're going to tell me, and then But so I try to read the business books, and then also have started to just get into nonfiction. And my husband's also a reader, but he only really likes fiction. So so we don't always mesh on what we're reading, but fiction. And so I also like science fiction to read in books, and so that can get pretty out there. Pretty wild. And then, and then it's like I'm going to hide in the closet because of all this dystopian stuff, but that you see kind of playing out a little bit sometimes. But
sure.
Yeah. So, and I do try to like go nonfiction, fiction, and then mix it up a little bit.
I end up being like nonfiction. If I wake up early in the morning, I try to read a little bit of a nonfiction, and then at night when I'm winding down, it's fiction for me for whatever reason.
Got it.
Deborah Hibbs, we can't see her name there, but grace is key. Deborah, you are on point, my friend. A lot of grace right now for people. We have about, let's say, 10 minutes. So is there how do you, Karin, and this is a big question, and we've had lots of answers, but how do you define success?
It's funny when you ask that question, and I'm like, I don't know that I've ever asked myself that before. So, so I really did sit back and think about it. And it's like, to get to an accomplishment, whatever that might be, whether it's personal, business, that you planned to get to, I think is part of that. But it's being able to say, I provided this value, right? So from the time I started till now, there's more value than when I started. I think that's success. Yeah. And that could be different definitions for different people based on who you are or what your skill set is or whatever. But, if you are in that forward position and you've helped and you've provided more to your community beyond that, I think that's huge success. I think success is also rolling with the punches and not getting stuck because your plan didn't work. Which I don't know that I've ever had a plan that from the beginning to the end didn't change.
Sure.
So I think that's a success, and then just not being defeated. The other challenge, I think, is being content with what you have accomplished. And you think, well, type A people, they're never satisfied. They're never content. But you can be. It's just you're content in that. Now you're on to the next challenge. But that is a huge piece part, right? So my concern is over that people let things, upset their inner peace, and it's things you can't change. So you shouldn't let that happen. And so I work on that a little bit.
That's a lot of wisdom in all that. I love the part about there's not a plan you started with that by the time it was accomplished, went the path you thought it was necessarily going to go. There was bobbing and weaving along the way, and oh man, didn't see that come in, and all that. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you don't make plans, because you have to make plans in your life. It's more about how flexible and adaptable can you be. And so I'll give you an example. I mean, I never thought I'd live in Colorado, right? But Hurricane Katrina happened, and whatever happened after that, I'm in Colorado and happy to be here, right? So ended up being fantastic, but never probably thought beyond that I would ever do that proactively.
Yeah, well, I love that you're able to go with it, and it sounds like you're loving it and making the most of it. We say in our house, like, if you haven't learned to be flexible in all this stuff right now, then you're probably broken in some way. There's something that broke if you haven't learned how to stretch or bend or be flexible with everything going on. We say in our house right now too that we hold everything kind of loosely. There's plans that we had along the way and things, whether a house or whatever those things are in our world that, through all of this, who knows, but there will be things that look different probably. And as long as we don't put a ton of judgment on it and recognize the mission remains the same in terms of us staying together as a family, et cetera, that, it's okay to hold things loosely in times of turbulence, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's important even in non-turbulent times, because again, through our life, we had plans and they didn't work out, and then we had to regroup and go forward, and it's gotten better. You just didn't think it would at the time, right? So you're like, it's all good, and you just have to figure out where that little turn has to take you. And just, I guess, not taking it too seriously sometimes helps too. So you have to laugh at some things, because from the outside it is funny.
Yeah, I always end up looking back on things that in the time created a fair amount of stress and anxiety, and I look back with a giggle or a laugh or with some sense of humor. If only I can learn to have it in the moment. That's something I think I need to work on. Taz says he loves the book train. He is all over the place, all kinds of books. Taz, you are, I think, the group reader for sure. You've read more than anyone I know. And who's this? Let's see. Sandy says that's huge and underrated, being content. I would agree. That is, I don't know, maybe one of the ultimate gifts in life is that gift to learn how to be content and safe in your own skin along the way, regardless of what comes your way. Is any words of wisdom or encouragement to folks out there looking for work right now?
First, I wish you well. Have been there. It's stressful. So the first thing I would say is don't underestimate the need for self-care. Acknowledge that you're stressed and what can you do, because it's stressful for you. It might be stressful for your family. That would be the first thing. So, you can't excel if you're really not healthy. So try to get healthy. The second thing I would say is don't put yourself in a corner, right? So you have all this food service experience, and while you may want to be in the food service industry, that really could help other places. So are there ancillary industries that you could work in and maybe work the way back? So maybe expand how you see your potential and where you might want to go.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you can always find your way back here. If in the short term there's something new, and maybe you end up loving that new thing, whatever that is. But and maybe it's even an ancillary part that serves food service in some capacity.
Right.
Denise is on. Tiffany is on. Hello, friends. When this is all over, whenever that is, who knows? Maybe it's never over.
Yeah.
When we don't remember it is what it is. For your team and your dealers, what will you need to have done to be able to say, you know what, we did it the right way. We handled that. We did it the right way, given all that was going on.
I would say that we are everyone is where they want to be proactively, right? So, and that they got there and they were able to stay healthy and grow. And that, again, it goes back to, did we make some progress even through that? That would be fantastic. And I think the other thing would be, did we learn something along the way that has now put us in the next page of the book, right? That we're still here. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Progress matters. That growth, that value, that learning, the education. Do you, one more question.
Yeah.
What do you hope, let's talk legacy real quick. You've been in the industry a long time. You've been Pride and Isomatic, and you've got to play a big role and touch a lot of people's lives. Whenever your day comes that you're like, you know what, I'm just going to mow the yard for the rest of my life, I have no idea. But what do you hope your legacy is? What do you hope to leave as in terms of your fingerprint on the industry, Karin?
Well, I would hope that it is, again, that everything that I've touched is in a better place than when I found it. But not just that, but that it's sustained, right? So that there's longevity and there's a new crew doing it, and it has a life beyond me or who's doing it now. And I've talked about it with the crew. I mean, you're in the moment, you're not thinking about it, but a big part of that leadership is trying to say, who's the next leader? Who's going to take the place? And I learned that in accounting. So in public accounting, pretty much you don't move up until there's a replacement. Okay. And so, right, so somebody moves up and there's a hole, but you have to have somebody to do the work. And so that was a great early lesson, is that there's got to be a backfill and making sure that they can do it well and take it beyond. And, you work with a lot of smart people. You're like, well, I couldn't do that. So kudos.
It sounds like, I think your legacy, the way you describe it, sounds wonderful for what it's worth.
It's a work in progress, right? So you hope that that's how you get there.
Well, you get what you're looking for. Didn't you say that?
I did say that.
So I think that your eye is in a great spot and a great vision of, how you want to leave it. And I have a feeling you're going to find it along the way. Karin, for any dealers out there listening, how do they come find you? How do they find Pride?
We have our website, pridecentricresources.com. You can contact us there. I'm on LinkedIn, so
Okay.
you can contact me through LinkedIn. And we're in Colorado, so we're not too hard to find. But so we do get contacts through our website. We have people call us. We're here, and we'd love to hear from you.
Love it.
Yeah.
A few more. Deborah, our buddy Deborah Hibbs. That's exactly the path I'm on and will work my way back. Love our industry. Deborah, way to go. We know that Deborah's a friend of the community who's transitioned and moved from, I think, San Francisco to Texas, and, now and helping out her parents and all this, really beautiful, frankly. Deborah, way to go. I know you're a food service. You just love this business and this industry, and I know you will be back, whatever that looks like. So good for you. I love the confidence. Taz, I love the legacy talk. What you leave behind is your mark. It's not money or fame. It's who you can take a lesson from you and make themselves better. I agree, Taz. Karin said it well. And I love the fact that, Karin, that what you want is sustainable. That it's not that you can just say you touch people and you left things better, but you help make things better, and you've got a system in place so that they continue on that way and keep getting better, after your time's done. So,
I mean, it's a living, a company's a living, breathing thing, and it can't live and die on one person or two, one management team. It's got to be able to go forward.
I love it. Karin, hey, thank you so much. It's been, I've met you a few times over the years, but we've never had to have got to have a conversation like this. And I consider it a gift. You shared a lot of wisdom and insight. We learned a ton about you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I know we tend to run into each other on planes, right? And now we can't do that. So.
You're right. Food Service Power Plant community, thank you for joining us. As always, remember, you got this. You're doing it. You're 8 months in. You're still moving. So keep going. Be proud of yourself. Pat yourself on the back tonight as you're brushing your teeth. Remind yourself, build that confidence. We all feel grateful to be doing it together. This community has been a source of energy and light and so much good. So thank you for that. Remember, if you're struggling, if you're in a particularly tough place, don't carry that alone. Talk to someone you trust. Go find a professional. You can reach out to me, whatever that is. You have a ton of people who are here to help you and walk with you. That light will come back. You just keep moving, keep going, keep grinding. And everyone else, if you have food service friends that you think could use community right now, could use a positive place to be uplifted, to learn, to grow, to connect with others, invite them in. I don't know how you do it, because I don't know how you do it in the group, but you can invite people. So go do it. Welcome them in. We're glad to have you. Have a great night, Karin. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
And be well, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks.
Bye.